pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First off, you're looking for approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second. Second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to GC one. It's a resolution allocating funds made available to the county of Oswego through American Rescue Plan Act to certain sub-recipients and beneficiaries.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we start with this resolution by reviewing 5 applications before a committee, and then further move that because there are outstanding committees that have jurisdiction over the rest of them, that we would hold a public hearing, or not a public hearing, but a special meeting just prior to the whole election.
Okay. I'll second that. Have a first and second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
We want to go on to the 5 that we have listed here. This starts off with the city of Fulton Parks Department.
Dave, would you want to just brief us on these, perhaps, as we're going to do?
Yeah, sure. This is a request from the city. They demonstrated lost revenue in their youth sports activity programs, and they're asking for some assistance to modernize, if you will, their basketball system at the War Memorial. Right now, everything is pretty antiquated. They have to hand crank up and down their basketball hoops every time they want to change the use in the War Memorial area, and they're asking to use their funds from lost revenue to make these improvements. Typically, we don't require an applicant to tell us what they're going to use the money for. If they demonstrate lost revenue, economic harm, that's enough. In this case, they told us what they're going to use it for.
Mr. Chairman, this legislature has been very consistent with supporting these type of youth and outdoor activities. I would recommend this committee move forward with this.
Second that. Okay, so first, any other discussion on that? We'll move on to the next one then, the town of Granby. Health report on that. Okay, we can vote on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, thank you. Town of Granby, they're requesting, requested $350,000, we're offering $50,000. Do you have anything on that, Dave?
Sure. I don't know if Mike wants to talk about the park program or not, but
This is adjacent to the community center that exists there right now. Town of Granby doesn't have any sort of open municipal park for the residents, especially for the youth program or anything like that. So this is to supplement that and to have it available to residents of Granby.
so we know also that the town is preparing grant applications for other sources. They did ask for $350,000. The task force recommended $50,000 based on, at the point we were reviewing this, there was not much money left in the pot. So we tried to get funds to all the applications we had that were eligible, and many of them had to be reduced from what they were asking for.
Again, this is consistent with what we've been doing. I think it's a good seed money for these. I would recommend we move forward with this recommendation.
And it's an eligible activity under the program rules, supporting outdoor recreation or even enhancing existing outdoor recreation opportunities.
I'll second that.
All right, we have first and second, any other discussion on that one? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, Thank you. Next up is the town of West Monroe, seeking $25,000 for a welcome message board placed at the town hall.
Pretty self-explanatory. They wanted an additional way to notify the public for things like vaccinations and clinics, and also emergency notifications, flooding, high water, pending ice storms or whatever. And because it can be used for several of the different categories supported by the law, including public health services, eligible to request these funds.
Go ahead.
I'm just wondering, is it one of those digital boards outside?
Yeah.
Oh,
Trying to start.
I'll second.
Okay, first and second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on next is town of Bowman, seeking $25,000 for backup generator for DPW.
Yeah, surprisingly, there's no way to open the doors of the town garage if they happen to lose power. They don't have any manual chain pulleys or anything, so they've decided at this point that it might be prudent to have a generator so when they lose power, they can actually get trucks in and out. And they've requested $25,000 to help them do that.
Good idea.
I have a question. It seems kind of odd that the town DPW has no generator backup whatsoever for emergency management services.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Yeah,
So, looking for a motion.
make a motion. They don't have anything there, they can't even open the door.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next up, we have the town of Mexico. They're looking for $30,000.
Yeah, so this is to help fund a feasibility study. They have a pretty highly used recreation area just east of the village. Soccer fields and all kinds of facilities out there. They anticipate that the community is going to be growing significantly over the next couple of decades, and they would like to do a feasibility study about trying to find funds for indoor recreation facility, soccer and other activities. And so they put up $30,000, asking for 30 to match that, so that they can hire a consultant to determine whether this makes sense for the village to pursue or not, or the town, I'm sorry.
I second that. First and second, any other discussion? Right.
So they're looking to put an indoor, is that what they're looking to do? Because they cleared that field next to the community park out there about 6 years ago. They cleared that whole area, and I was wondering what they were going to do with that. Now it's starting to overgrow again. So if they were going to expand, they were going to expand them. But if they're looking to look for indoor, that would have said, because that isn't what it says here. It just said they're looking to expand the park, the Mexico Community Park.
Yeah, well, you're correct on both points. They are going to expand the community park, and the study is to determine whether or not they can afford and then subsequently support an indoor facility so they can have year-round recreation activities for the town residents.
Okay.
So this is a study to determine whether it's a good use of time and money.
Okay.
Motion, looking for second.
Second.
Motion second. Any other discussion on that? Not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Chairman, just as a general point of reference, if the current suggestions that have come from the task force are funded in this legislative round, every community except Phoenix, New Haven, Parish, Altmar, and Palermo will have received some kind of support from the county using ARPA funds. The only reason those have not is they didn't have, no one asked for it.
Explain to it again. All right, thank you, Dave. All right. Next on, move to a resolution authorizing budget amount in the Office of Strategic Initiatives, American Rescue Plan Funds.
I make a motion to move this forward for legislation in lieu of the, all the applications that are being submitted to the state committees, if approved, will need to be funded with this application.
Second.
Yeah.
First and second. Any other discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next up is resolution 3, resolution rescinding certain previously approved ARPA awards.
I make a motion to start the discussion.
Second. At the first and second. They didn't meet all the guidelines for that.
So different circumstances for each. The earliest one was a project at the eastern end of the county. Small business tried to start a cafe during COVID and just couldn't make it work. And we had awarded them funds, but before they had received them, they wrote back to us and said, we're not going to be able to make it. We're actually going to be filing bankruptcy. Your support, $25,000 in this case, was appreciated, but it really wouldn't have helped us avoid this. So we're notifying you that thank you, but no thank you. So they declined respectively. Second one was a business that was awarded funds, but before they received them, sold the business, changed the name of the business, and one of the rules of the program is that applicant would have had to exist and been operating prior to COVID, and because the name changed, we wouldn't have been able to award funds to the new business name because that business didn't exist prior to COVID. So that one was brought back as well. And the third one was business in Pennellville that after we had approved funding for them, we discovered they had some outstanding tax obligations, and so we held that back, and since then that business is still operating, but it's not eligible because some of those items have not been resolved.
So I think this shows that this program is more than just a preliminary application handing out and awarding money. That your office is obviously doing a good job managing these from start to finish, and with the help of the county attorney setting up the contracts. I think it shows that prudent management of the application. Here's a case with some additional monies that we made available for some of the applications that have not been approved. And I would expect probably some of this will continue to happen as we continue with this program.
So, yeah, thank you for those kind words, and we appreciate the support of the county attorney's office. They're very helpful. In the case of these particular funds, we already presumed that you would approve this request, and the dollars related to those programs was figured into the budget that we used when we came to the task force. So they will be allocated as part of the projects on this list if those are all approved.
I would make a motion that we approve this resolution and send it on to the legislature.
Second. Any other discussion? All,
Frank?
I think it's wonderful, what we're doing here.
Thank you, Frank.
But I have a question. In the city of Fulton, there are satellite police stations. Okay, what is happening? Because I got the information that there's only going to be one. I thought it was two. Will we,
Yeah, they haven't notified them that they have a contract yet.
They also have not returned their contract.
Yeah, so it could be, they haven't returned the contract to us, so it could be because they're working something out, and right now the contract says that they're going to have two. So if it turns out there's only going to be one, then we wouldn't be executing that contract with them. They were approved for two, so we had.
that's what I thought. But when one of the counselors said to me, well, it's only going to be one.
Yeah.
And I questioned, I'll question it here, so
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Thanks to good work of the county attorney's office. Every recipient has a very unique and specific contract and terms that are related to the conditions that the body approved. So anytime there's a change, then we have a problem, and we get right to it.
Good, thank you. That's it.
any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Okay, next up, we have a resolution authorizing the budget amount for the county clerk, Department of Motor Vehicles.
There a motion, we open this up to discussion.
So all this is increasing our budget for our revenues and our expenses, $2,100 each. As you know, we sell the easy passes, we just have to purchase more and sell more, and they're selling pretty good now since I found a way to sell them in DMV, so that's really kicked up the total number that we're able to sell. We make roughly $4 a piece.
I make a motion to move this forward.
Okay, first, second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Next up, we have the resolution for professional service contract, RFP 23 PD 001 case management software. This has been awarded to Legal Edge Software out of Pennsylvania. It's not to exceed $61,000.
Make a motion to discuss.
First and second for discussion.
So there was 10 that responded to. So who reviewed this? Who reviewed this for approval?
Don't you think?
I'm sorry, I was looking at the resolution, the service contract for the case management software.
It went through the public defender's office. Okay. Sorry, I was looking at another resolution, make sure about right.
So that's what it is. It's not different prices, you can see.
A lot of responses.
Mr. Lawyer, would you like to make any comments to this?
Yeah, the company we picked has a long history of working with public defenders and government agencies. Their case management software is specifically designed for us. The price of it was reasonable compared to some of the other companies that were, exorbitant in my opinion. Also, the software, the indigent legal services will be picking up the cost for us. It falls under that. So it's just basically a pass-through. This company has the ability, they've been in the business for a long time, and they just work with government agencies. So that's, what we found and why we like that over the other companies.
You all set, or?
I'm good.
All set? We have a first and second on it? Any other discussion?
I'm actually surprised there's 10 responses. We seem to have a course of not getting many responses. Just a meeting, we had like one.
Right.
I think that this needs to be ruled. Not many responses. This is amazing. I don't know why there's so many responses. And they're quite diverse in what they are, from range and price. So
Right. We have a first and second. Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Next up, we have a resolution authorizing budgetary modification, increasing wages for temporary and part-time warehouse trucking technician workers for the Board of Elections. Up to a total of $20,000.
make a motion to discuss.
Second.
First and second for discussion. Right?
I think it's great that they're finally gonna get a raise after 14 years, but how much of a raise are they gonna get? I mean, it's only a lump sum of $20,000. What are they gonna get paid?
Yeah, it's not a big raise, obviously, 20 grand.
Well, that's why, I'm just wondering, I mean, you're losing people because they can't, and I know that there's nobody here from,
Yeah, I know from the Board of
So-
Elections, so.
When this was presented to us at committee before, they said they'd be bringing this back. They had said they were $15 an hour, and I think they were moving up to 20 or.
I think it was going to 20, because it only is for part-time people for that short amount of time.
Because it was part-time folks, they went to $20 an hour.
so do we know that for sure or not? I mean, I think it's great, but I want to
That was
make
the
sure.
amount they gave
There
us.
was a discussion at the last meeting, yes.
Okay. All right, okay. Well, I understand they're only part-time, but I know they're very significant. When you're talking about the elections, you're talking about something that's very important to everybody in the whole United States. Okay, and right here, we've got them, we should give them the raise, which I think it's great that we're going to, but I just wondered what it was, that's all. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next up, we have a resolution setting standard work days and daily for elected and appointed officials. This will keep us all in alignment with New York State retirement system. Everyone's hours are listed there. It's affiliated with.
Make a motion to approve that.
Okay, got first and second to approve.
I'll second.
First and second. Any other discussion on that?
I have a question. Who verifies these records?
That I do not know.
I think they are, the records are created
They have to be submitted.
by the legislature, and it goes to the clerk of the legislature.
But how do we verify that they're actually working these hours?
It's an honor system. All the legislators are honorable people.
Says so on your title.
Well,
All right.
there's quite a diverse,
Well, that's what I'm saying, right? Some people only have a few, and other people have a lot more. It's maybe quite a bit.
I believe that is determined by I've never had to do this, you guys have, don't you keep a record
or
over a
3
certain amount
months.
of time? Yeah,
What
it's a
we're
written
doing,
record, all
right?
that good stuff.
So you do at some point, you got to
Some of
submit
us
it?
forget to
You
write
have to
things
submit it.
down.
You do have to submit it, okay,
And
very good. Who do we submit it to?
Clerk of the legislature.
clerk.
If she goes over, that's fine. Then the clerk goes over, that's how it's done.
Yeah. Calculates the-
Fair.
One change, just so everybody knows, is the 2030 So whether it's 20 possible full-time days or 30 full-time days a month, depending on the month. That's the new change, because mine was screwed up last time around with the comptroller's office. So basically, you're only seeing your full-time employee electeds that get you 20, 30. That's what the comptroller's office
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else?
You got it?
Everybody in favor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Next up, we have a resolution authorizing reclassification from position on the attorney's office. This goes for administrative secretary. He stepped up to a grade 20 and salary would be $47,080.
Motion to discuss.
Second.
First and second.
County attorney's here.
This individual is presently in a bargaining unit and handles labor relations matters. This would remove that title from, remove the individual from the bargaining unit, make it confidential under management, and provide her an increase consistent with what her increase would have been had she been in management. Handles arbitrations, disciplines, things like that with the unions.
Any other discussion?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? We have a resolution denying administrative tax refund or credit pursuant to New York State real property tax regarding real property located in Wedgewood Drive and Town of West Monroe. This is for Brian and Michelle Whites. Yeah,
Sure, yeah. Just a quick overview of the process. Any taxpayer can submit one of these forms if they think there's been a mistake in the calculation of their tax. And when they do, I have to do an investigation, which involves talking to the assessor to find out if a mistake was made. And that list of mistakes is pretty specific, and it has to fit one of those, and usually it does. If I approve of their application, then the county treasurer can just handle this. But if I deny the application, then the full legislature, as the tax levying body, has to make the determination on whether to approve it or deny it. Because I just make a recommendation, I don't actually approve the applications. And I'm recommending to deny it because it doesn't fit one of the corrections that I think the law allows for. Whether there was a mistake or not is kind of up for debate, but I don't think there's a remedy for it through this process that they're asking for.
Corey, do you want to mention the stipulation as well?
Oh, sure. So when you make a complaint on your assessment, you can come to a stipulation with the town and you can say this is what we've agreed, handshake deal on the assessment, and it stays that way for the year. And they did that last year at an amount that was roughly around what it's assessed for now. So I'm not really sure why they are asking for it to be lowered more than it was when they agreed to an assessment. So
They did call me about that and said there was some form that the town wouldn't turn in. It was the 552 or whatever to the state. I don't know if that was ever done.
They were claiming that the assessor had to file a correction to their final roll, or correction to the tentative roll for this year. But they were asking that form to be filed at the same time they were going through the grievance process. So the assessor didn't file that form because they were already grieving their assessment. So.
Okay, so it's a legal type of thing, then they can still come back.
Yeah, they're going through the legal process to complain on their assessment, and I don't see any reason why they need to do this administrative application at the same time. I think they're trying to cover all their bases, but I think that's the right process to go through, is the legal one.
Looking for a motion.
I'll make the motion to move this forward.
Second.
Based on your recommendation.
Thank you. Second. Thank you. Any other discussion? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Next up, we have a resolution adopting the county of Oswego law number 3, 2023, entitled local law. Number 2, as concerns residents requires for assistance of public defenders. And we have to have this amended. Because the local law number 3 has to change to local law number 2.
I move it to open up for discussion.
Okay. Have a first and second. Any discussion on that? All the residence requirements are on the back of the worksheet. Section 4A.
So we're gonna vote on the amendment to change the number.
Okay. First and second. The first and second, this will be on the amendment, this will change it from 2 to 2. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Now we're back to the original.
Make a motion to accept it.
Yeah. First and second, any other discussion? Right?
I thought, is there a public hearing on this, or are we just passing it through now? I know it's gotta go through to the full legislature. That's what we're doing now, because I know there's a public hearing on it, I asked to have it changed, he said you can't change it. So when it comes up on full ledge, I'll ask to change it there again.
Yeah, on the
Okay.
13th will be the public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Next up, we have a resolution authorizing the chairman of the legislature to execute documents that may be necessary for the county department to seek public and private funds to support approved programs and projects. Looking for
Make a motion to accept.
a first
Second.
and a second. So if you'd like to-
Sure. We have a version of this on the books now. But we should be doing this for every legislative session. It should be something that is be adopted every couple of years. This is used only when a grant application requires a resolution or proof that the chairman or the chief executive approves the grant. So this is, and there's short time to apply for the grant, so we can't wait for a legislative session before the deadline. This is modified slightly to put in an extra control on it. In the final resolve, the original just gave the chairman the ability to sign off without our normal review of, is this going to obligate other departments? What's the financial impact? Do we have, in other words, the grant and aid policy that departments have to follow for me to check that it's not going to have any undue hardship on that it doesn't obligate other departments other than the one that is receiving the grant. That's in our grant and aid policy, PRP 2016-9. So we've added that step in so that we don't get into a situation where the grant is received by a department and another department doesn't know that it obligated them as well. It's a quick check, it's not going to delay the process that much. And in some instances, the other departments do want to participate, so it doesn't mean that they don't, just need to know.
I'll make a motion to pass.
Okay, first and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Resolution number 12, resolution fixing time and place for public hearing relative to proposed county local law number 3, 2023, entitled law allowing eligible firefighters and volunteer ambulance workers to seek real property tax exemption under real property tax law, RPTL 466A. This is
I'll make a motion to move discuss this.
Second. Discussion. So we had the 10th day of August, 23 to 2 o'clock.
Being we held a public hearing on this, and there was public comment, and there's been further discussion by the legislature to reconsider the eligibility requirements. So that's why it's warranted to have another public.
5 to 2, it went right, 2 years.
Make a motion to set the time and place for the public.
Second.
To the second. Any other discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Next up, we have the reporting of departments, county clerk department.
So just to update everybody, next month, hopefully you'll see an RFP for our records management system for our record center and for the county departments. Something we've been working on. We asked for ARPA funding in the budget for, so just know that we're closing out that RFP right now, getting ready to evaluate it. We actually have a walkthrough on Friday with some of the vendors. So hopefully next month's committee, we should see some results from that. Second thing is working right now with the Department of State on notaries. So if you are a notary or know somebody with a notary, there's a lot of changes that occurred to the notaries this year. Quite frankly, none of them are great. It's just more burdensome for our notaries. They have to keep a notary journal. That's just the tip of the iceberg. And right now, I'm working to get access to the notary authorizations that would come from the Department of State. They're all online now, and it's a pain when they don't even have the system set up. So, once again, the state put the cart before the horse, thinks it's a great idea. It's a horrible idea, and according to executive law, well, they're violating executive law on most of the actions they're taking. So, we're working through that, and more to come on that. If anybody has any questions on notary, stop down and see me, and we can see what's going on with your particular case. Other than that, plugging away at recordings, and DMV is holding its own.
Okay, thank you, Terry. Next up, we have a strategic initiative department.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So with respect to the ARPA funds, we're pretty much at the end of what we call the external pot. We expect that once we get through this list, we'll know more closely what number we're at, and then sometime in the beginning or near the end of this year, we'll be able to put a pretty hard figure on whether there's, well, there's no question there'll be some, but how much extra is left in the external pot. We may be able to allocate a couple more projects at that time. We do have to allocate all the funds by the end of 2024. So once we're pretty sure about these projects, as you saw today, some move ahead and then get pulled back. And then there's also a small portion of the external funds that funds a project called administration. And what that looks like depends a little bit on when I decide to leave. If I decide to leave voluntarily or otherwise. And so we'll know that number better, and I'm sure we'll be able to get a couple more small projects in before we're done. Next year, we'll begin a very vigorous auditing process, go through everybody who's received funding, make sure they've completed their projects, they have all the proper documentation. So we'll do our audit to make sure that we're prepared for a federal one if it happens. And then we'll follow up closely with people who haven't spent all their money to ensure that it's spent by the end of 2026. So next year, we may discover, or we may bring to you some requests to pull back and cancel contracts because if people, in our auditing process, if we don't believe that people are going to be able to fully complete the project and expend the funds by the end of 2026, we're going to try to get that money back and reallocate it to somebody else who can spend it within that time period. So that's what the future, if you will, looks like for the next 2 years of ARPA activities. But as you know, strategic initiatives includes several things outside of that. So we're also working on some infrastructure projects. We've kicked off the analysis program that we have with CNS. They're going to do a really thorough inventory of everything that we have on the water and sewer side in the county, public and private. Help us decide how to move forward, where and who to help and how we can help them. And then separately, Chairman Weatherup and County Administrator have put together a strategic advancement team, leadership team, and we meet every 2 weeks and talk about how we're moving forward. Specifically, right now we're focusing on the impacts that Micron could have in the county. So we have workforce and infrastructure and various topics that we believe are high priority. Talking about visiting one of the Micron facilities, meeting with local government officials in that community, talking to them about what their experience has been, talking to some of the supply chain companies that have located there as a result of Micron, trying to get a feel for who we can expect or who we can attract here. Want to get out and see if we can get them to choose Oswego County as their home. So that's been pretty busy. It's only been in existence for a month and a half, maybe. But it's very productive meeting, a couple hours, sometimes longer than folks who are present would like to be there, but I think we've been making good progress.
Anybody have any questions for David?
Good job, Dave. I just want to say that the salt project we've done here, all these projects, I think you've done, and your staff have done a tremendous job along with the review committee. I think it's got a task, a great task.
Mike, would you mind saying that, like, when my wife's present at some point?
I can send you a special card.
She's convinced I screw up everything I do.
Next up, we have real property, department updates.
So I have an annual report, which each of you got in your mailbox. I have copies here, but it's pretty lengthy, so I don't really want to go through it. So I'll let you go through it at your own pace, and I'll bring it back next month. If you have any questions for me, or in between, you can ask me questions too. What I wanted to mention about it was that I added some things to it from last year, changed some things so that it references full value a lot more than assessed value, because assessed values don't really mean much when you're not at full value. So there's things like tax rate comparisons at full value to give you a better picture of where tax rates are compared to other counties, for the towns, where the towns are at compared to other towns. And there's a section in the middle on improvements that could be made to assessment administration. I attended a webinar a couple months ago that talked about property tax misperception in the United States. And the paper that was presented on talked about all the states and how people perceive their property taxes, and had assessments are a part of that too. and New York ranked highest. I think they were like number 3 in misperception. I mean, people don't really understand their assessments, they don't really understand property taxes and how they work, and if you were to ask the general person how much are your property taxes every year, they wouldn't be able to accurately answer you. And I think part of that is just a failing of the system in New York of how these assessments are done at the local level, that there's so much variation in how they're administered. And so there's a section in the middle that talks about more improvements that I think could be done that the state also promotes. So I think that's a good, if you read nothing else, I would read that part, the assessment administration part, just as a informative tool, I guess. So.
I would say they might not know how the taxes are broken down, but every New Yorker would tell you our taxes are too high.
They're too high, yes.
That would be the first response.
Do they tell you why they don't understand it? Is because of their banks and their escrow accounts bouncing all over the place, or?
Yeah, so the biggest misperception for I think New Yorkers is that they don't view school taxes as being the same as property taxes, because school taxes are a property tax. But if you were to ask the average person in New York what they pay in property taxes every year, they're probably going to tell you what they pay in county taxes. They're not going to tell you, they're not going to include that school tax number, or they're going to very underestimate what they think their actual tax burden is. Yeah, you got, because that's the thing, is in New York, county and town usually come together, but village comes at a different time, city usually comes at a different time, school comes at a different time, and so most people don't really add those all together in their head, right? As opposed to a place like, say, City of Syracuse, where those all come out on one bill in January, and you get 12 months to pay it if you so choose. Those people seem to have a better perception of their property taxes than those in the more rural communities. And I think it's just New York State also has a habit of putting out programs like STAR that they then change dramatically, and that causes confusion for homeowners as well. So, and I think with taxes being so high in New York State too, people are certainly more aware of them, but maybe understand the process a little less. And I can vouch for that with the comments and questions that come into my office.
I wondered about that. Have you ever considered doing a workshop or a seminar that residents could attend so they could understand?
Absolutely.
You have considered
I've considered it, yeah.
You've done it.
I haven't done it, but I've considered
Well,
it.
I think it'd be a great idea
Yeah.
if you did that.
Yeah, there's
I'd like you to tell.
prior directors have done that. They used to do I don't know who it was, but one of them used to do workshops at like local libraries and things, and invite people to come. I've considered doing something similar.
Maybe record it so people could just go to your website and
Exactly.
watch it like as a webinar
Yeah.
or something.
Oh yeah, I put a lot of time and effort into trying to get more on the website to educate people.
That's a good
But-
idea.
But I think that's a good video.
I think you'd have a better participation if you did it that way.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Helpful, it'd be helpful.
I think to Mark's point, I think, and Jay's, most people would understand more if it wasn't escrow.
Mhm.
If everybody had to sit down and write that check
Mhm.
once a year, I think things would change drastically.
Yeah.
But having said that, I'm happy, proud to be a part of this group that has actually lowered the tax rate in the last couple of years.
You're here.
And we're doing one weekend. If the other governments would also follow suit, that would be great.
Schools.
Schools.
They're the biggest culprit.
Yeah, schools, that's difficult.
Do you have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay, next up is the Board of Elections. We have nobody here. That's fine. We will have to go into executive session.
Mr. Chairman, I request an executive session for proposed or pending litigation involving Addis Ethanol Fulton and CNY Raceway Park bankruptcy.
First, second.
Second?
Yeah. First and second. Executive session.
All right.
Question before you adjourn. Okay?
Okay, we're back.
back in session, all right? I need to know the procedure to change policies that are in policies and procedures manual.
That is the first policy in the procedures manual, the steps to go through. Policy changes can be suggested from departments, from administration, from the legislature. We revise it, and it'll go eventually, if there's a specific jurisdictional committee that needs to see it first, they can look at it, and then it comes here to this committee for finalization.
And then it goes to the full ledge for authorization there, correct or no?
The legislature approved the original revision of all the policies in 2006. That included having this committee do the final review on any further revisions. So we're looking at, there's major revisions in 2006. Several more were revised in 16, I think. So we're starting a review now to bring everything up to speed, particularly after the changes in the financial system, because some of them are financial policies.
Right. So probably it comes to this committee, then it has to go to the full ledge, correct or not?
No.
It doesn't. It just has to go through this committee, though.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The reason I ask it is because budget mods, we're not signing budget mods. And the policy says, according to the policy and procedures manual, says level of authorization. Okay, the policy requires committee signatures only in the case described in section 4B. 4B is level of authorization. Legislative committee, department head, and county treasurer.
Right.
Now we've changed it to just having the committee chairman sign it now, and the department heads and the treasurer.
Right. While we're reviewing that and revising that policy to bring it up to date. So that's what we've decided to do while that revision is underway. Because that policy is out of date because that particular section no longer applies. Plus, with the implementation of Munis, the account numbers are all different and have a different structure than what's in that policy.
So when did we change it? Because I didn't hear it during the committee today, but we changed it before this committee met. I'm asking you because, I know you can change it, okay? And I just want to make sure that the, policy and the procedures are being followed, and they're not being followed because you see, we're going to change it to something while we review it. And I don't.
Since committee signatures are not required, because that section no longer applies.
And it says the policy requires committee signatures.
In certain
2006.
Under certain conditions, which
Right.
when that was originally written, committees had the power to change the budget. That is improper now. Only the full legislature can. So that section is.
But it's in there now.
Right, that's what we're going to take
In there
out
now.
next.
So we have to follow the procedures that is in the policy and procedures manual, or we just don't, and if we want to, we can just change it later. We can talk about it, or we can change it, Right now, you've changed it where, to the proper way, what you're saying is because it's outdated. Well, it should have been changed before we decided, okay, yeah, it's outdated, so let's change it so that we start just, after we've changed it, then we're going to just have committee chair and, people
Section
that
that
you've got to do it now.
requires committee signatures is obsolete. But we got into a practice of having everybody sign it. It's not required. So in the interim, while the policy's being updated, we're having just the chairman sign it so that the legislature knows that it's has gone through committee. We're just having the committee chairman, or in their absence, the legislature chairman sign it. And next month, you'll have a new policy in front of you.
Rich, is there a ruling on that? Or it just, you change it as you go along. I'm sorry, this is a democracy. We should be, the procedure said right in the beginning, if you're going to change policies and procedures in this vote, you'd have to bring it to this committee and have it voted on in this committee.
Which is what we're going to do.
But you haven't yet, and you've changed the policy. You
change the procedure.
Nothing has changed, there's an obsolete section. So in the interim, we're asking the chairman of the committee to sign the budget bond.
You're claiming that it's, it's obsolete, and so therefore you can change it inadvertently without it coming through this committee. And it's got to come through this committee. It says so right in the beginning. Now, if it's obsolete, I understand. We're going to change it. But it has to come through this committee before you change it. Yes or no, Rich? I mean, no, Rich, give a ruling or something on this. I mean, no, I understand what you're doing, okay, and why you're doing it. But I need to know if it's what you're doing is the right way to do it. Yeah, you're saying, well, we decided we're going to change it to this until we change it. I mean, that's not democracy. That's dictatorship. We're going to change it to what we want to change it to now, but we're going to change it later because we're going to bring it through the committee because it's obsolete. I understand that it's obsolete, though. That's not the point. The point is, if you're going to change a procedure in the policy and procedures book, it says right in the beginning, it has to come through this committee, not change it, say, well, we're going to do this until we change it.
We're not changing a policy, we're changing a traditional practice that is not in that policy.
It says right here, the procedure is in your policy and procedures manual, PRP 2006-18. Transfer of funds, budget modification. The policy requires committee signatures, not a signature. Committee signatures only in the case described in section 4B, which describes anything over $10,000. Okay?
Not entirely.
It says to transfer amounts over $10,000 within the same object, between objects, and between departments of a group.
Right, and that section ended the authorization process right there without it going to the full legislature. That is improper. So that section is obsolete.
But it's in there right now. If I went to that policy and procedure manual right now, it'd be in there. Until you take it out of there, you have to follow the policy that's in here.
But what trumps policy is state law, which says the legislature, the budget can only be modified by the vote of the full legislature, not a jurisdictional committee, unless we pass local laws saying that the committee.
But in order to get it from committee to the full legislative body, we put in the procedure of having the committees sign the budget mod. It's not a full authorization of it until it goes through the full committee. It goes to the full legislative body. I know that, okay? But your policy says that you will be signing, the committees will be signing it to authorize it to go to the full legislative body.
No, that is not what the policy says. It says only the signatures are required only in the event if it's over 10,000 and it's within those groups, and that is not a precursor in that section to send it to the legislature. Because back then, committees had the power to change the budget on their own, which is no longer appropriate. That's the only reason committee signatures were required, because there was a time when this county allowed committees to change the budget. What happened was habit, the tradition that everybody just signed them anyway. All we've done is end that tradition. It is not in the policy. In fact, change the policy.
So what are you going to change it to? What is it going to read when you change it to? It's going to read signature by the committee chairman, department heads, and treasurer.
I haven't made my full recommendation yet, but it'll probably be just the chairperson of the committee or the chairman of the legislature.
So you
along with myself as budget officer, the department head who initiated it, and the treasurer signs off on it once it's authorized, because they actually handle or control the accounts.
So you're not going to rule on it, Rich. What we're doing is legal or not legal. Okay. So all I'm asking you to do is rule whether I know we're going to change it eventually. Okay. That isn't my point here, ladies and gentlemen. The point is that we have not changed it yet. And yet we're going to, we did change it. And that's not right.
I think what you're saying is that we've been signing it and not required, so we're not changing something, we just stopped doing what we shouldn't be doing anyway.
Mike, according to the policies
I
and
know what the policy
procedures,
says. I realize-
it says that we have to sign it.
No, it does not.
It
Only
says right
in
there.
that particular circumstance.
Look, when
which
I
is no
started here,
longer
when I
allowed.
started 10 years ago, if I didn't sign the budget mod, they sent it back and said, you gotta sign the budget mod.
Right.
Okay, so you gotta sign the budget mod. Now, all of a sudden, we don't have to sign the budget mod, but the policy and procedure says we do, but it's obsolete. Obsolete, I understand. You should have changed it back when it became obsolete.
I agree.
But now we're gonna change it now because of what happened, okay, last month. But if I hadn't said something, we'd have never changed it, we'd be sending budget mods now. But now we're gonna change it, and we're gonna change it before we actually change it.
So did we put this confusion on you?
Well,
They're
no.
gonna be revised this year.
You wanna call it confusion, Mike, I call it, holding it to order. Go ahead, you can't, you want to close your meeting, go ahead and close your meeting. You haven't got anything,
Thank you. I would offer,
Not
the
right.
committee would, offer a resolution to hire the former plant maintenance manager if he has a claim.
Thanks, Richard.
Second on that.
Bullshit.
Here, for $5,000 a month as a contractor.
But just one thing maybe add to it. If some additional work, stop all the bells and lines
Right.
going up, I think we should include the cost of getting that taken care of. If you're gonna be storing this plant, you don't want all that stuff.
Yeah, I guess I would offer that money does not include materials.
Yes, okay. I'll second that.
I'd like to say something about that. I have no problem with, saying yes to that if he's not gonna be just a babysitter. Like, I want the problem solved. Cameras, shut it down, spend what it takes to secure the building.
That's the focus, and I'll clarify that. Actually, legislator House and I are need to put money.
Does that make
That's what I'm
sense?
saying.
But just
That's
have
what I'm
them,
saying, it's gonna cost more than $4,000 a month.
Okay, we have a first and
I'll
a second.
second.
First and second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
I was just wondering, who's gonna oversee this? Who's he gonna report to?
So I'm meeting there Monday with Ann's Hall House, probably Mark.
And not the buildings and grounds or something.
No, that's not the worst idea either. I have at least some part there. I want to have him meet the sheriff also.
Yeah, you should have somebody you can go to.
Are you coming back, Mark?
Oh, do you need, I was just gonna go see, Dave.
Oh, I don't need it in this.
Oh, yeah, no, I got a meeting in half an hour, just trying
Well,
to
let's
make sure.
keep June the 30th.
I'm afraid you're running out.
No, I'd never leave you behind.
You don't want them to report directly to you, I mean, but.
I'm not opposed to having them do that, but probably procedure-wise, no. I'm gonna get Frank one more.
Jimmy, you
Probably should go through some sort of, I don't have a problem taking Dolan down there and say, hey, we're gonna add to your next, but I don't know that that's part of the resolution.
Jim wants
what
this.
about the sheriff?
Well,
Security
he's interested, and there's a couple spots in the building where he feels he can do some training and stuff. There's some vacant rooms, some spot training and stuff, so I think it'll be a little bit of equality. But hopefully, this is only till it sells, hopefully it sells really quick. One come back with a success story or something.
You have the sheriff bring that big SWAT truck out there and let's sit there for a
Right.
few weeks.
Intimidate.
That was, you just got home now.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, we have one more resolution, and pass it on, don't forget about us, separate in my pack. And this is a resolution appointing a historian for the county of Oswego.
Thank you, Diane.
I'm not that young.
Make a motion to discussion.
Okay, we have first, for a second.
You can second on
So he's gonna do,
Well,
How long have we been without an historian? But how long you been without it? This though?
So this is a replacement?
The replacement. because the other
Somebody
person, I
else.
think, is.
Oh, that's right. Terry was here to discuss
This
this.
person, Terry Knowles, and he's from this area.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a historian.
There's no budget impact to this bill.
So.
One person resigned.
Let me ask you a question, I was thinking about something else.
No, there's no budget.
At least this year.
Right.
Okay, it'll be the same page.
That's the same.
This isn't here term indefinite.
Well, that's what the other one was.
I know, but maybe add a time limit.
We can talk to Terry about that. I'm sorry I forgot about it, it wasn't in my regular packet, was extra.
I make a motion, we send this forward to the full legislature.
Yeah, okay, first and second, any other discussion on it? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. I'm looking for that
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just spoke with the county attorney. I think we can, we have a suggestion here. I would suggest that we pass a motion as the committee that controls policies, that while this policy is being revised, that you move to have only the committee chair or the legislative chair sign them until the revision is done.
Make the motion.
Second.
First and second, any other discussion?
I hope this is
All
a tape,
in
right?
favor? Anybody opposed?
Now it's nice and official.
Thank you, Frank.
Okay.
How you got what you wanted?
I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. We're adjourned. Thank you,
All
everyone.
right, thank you.